Strat-O-Matic Excel Carryover League. Brought to you by the Shrimp Troll.
(1973 to 1976). Welcome back, baseball fans. The 1973-76 Carryover League postseason tournament action. We are in the American League today, a series between, well, an unusual series between the Ohio Players and the Texas Rangers. Let's go first and just look at our third round postseason. And this is the first time teams are actually playing games to see if they get into the playoffs or not. It's the 4 teams who are in first are either going to be in first or possibly fall to a wild card, which leaves 4 more teams in each league. 2 need to go away, and 2 need to be the 5th and 6th seeds in their division. We start here and go 5, 6, 7, 8 in a counter or a clockwise manner. Same up here, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And when we do that, based on one-loss record, it turns out that 3 series are your traditional best of 3s. We already saw the Pirates upset the Giants, mild upset, beat them 2 straight. Pirates are a wild card, either number 5 or number 6, to be determined. Okay. We're playing Texas, Ohio here, and this one is not quite a best of 3. Rangers are actually a game and a half back, so they need to take 3 out of 4. Or they need to win 3 games. A 2-0, then Ohio gets to a 2-0 will only get them within a half a game, so they need one more win. So a 3-0 or 3-1 is what the Rangers need. As soon as Ohio wins twice, that series is over. A couple other interesting things about it is that the Rangers in Ohio also affect the playoff destinies of the Detroit Tigers and the Oakland A's, who, if the Rangers were to win 2 straight, the A's would fall into a wild card. Unbelievable. If Ohio wins 2 straight, or I should say the Rangers would need to win 3 straight, my bad. If Ohio wins 2 straight, they win that division, Detroit's a wild card, and they would take over, they would take over the division lead. Now, obviously the other 3 games, there's plenty of pedigree here in all these teams, which is why we love them so much, particularly the National League. Giants, Phillies, Mets, Pirates, all capable of doing some damage if they get in the playoffs. The Red Sox, we know what they can do with that 75 team. Even the Twins have really had a nice resurgence after struggling in the last few years. But you don't typically picture Texas and Ohio doing damage. Short story for Texas, 74, they had a nice year with Billy Martin, challenging Oakland down the stretch. Their metrics as a team with a losing record, but they actually were about 8 games over 500. They were like 84 and 76. And overachieved significantly for Billy Martin and company. They also had Fergie Jenkins win 25 games for them, and they had Jeff Burroughs win the MVP. Also, our Texas Rangers have brought in Toby Harrah and Len Randall. And then the year after that, Jeff Burroughs and Mike Hargrove. So they have added some nice pieces to a pretty weak Washington Senators team at one point. And the Ohio Players, we need to take a deep dive here. This is a very curious story. So we have, and it's worth doing, we have 32 teams in our league. It's kind of set up like the NFL. 8 divisions of 4, right? So we have devoted one of our divisions exclusively to 4 expansion teams. 2 with realistic names, Arizona, Colorado, and then fictional, truly fictional, Portland and Las Vegas baseball teams. So 4 of the 8 expansions are in one division, thereby meaning that one expansion team is guaranteed a playoff spot. So 8 expansion teams, 32 teams, that's 25% of the league. Yet one of the 8 teams is guaranteed a spot, that's 12.5%. So that makes the paths for the other teams a little more difficult. You've got the Florida Marlins here really up against it because the Braves, Phillies, and Mets are usually always good in this timeline. You have the traditional stories of Toronto and Seattle. And it's almost playing out the same way. The Mariners are behind the Blue Jays as far as fielding a competitive team. Seattle's fumbled the ball every time they've had it. And Toronto, they had a playoff appearance a few years ago. Actually, were up 2-0 in a playoff series against the Dynasty A's and ultimately lost, but they were still up in that series. Been around 500. Of course, they don't come into existence, these teams, till 1977. Which leaves us the last curious case of the Ohio players seemingly, in air quotes, up against it more than any other team in the league without a rock to, build upon. Cleveland and Detroit were pulled out of the American League East and given this division to rule over because they don't have to compete with Baltimore and Boston and the Yankees. This should be the Indians and Tigers routinely back and forth for the division title. And you got an Expo team, of course, a steadily improving expansion team from the much better National League. They don't have to compete in that National League East anymore, so the Expos can rise to the top. And if the Tigers, Indians, and Expos are all rising, then they should beat up the weakest team around, the Ohio players. But that has not been the case. Matter of fact, so Ohio was modestly just sitting at 500 at the All-Star break. In this tournament, though, they've had their way. First time around, they played the Indians. Here we go. And they knocked, right here, they knocked the Indians out. Indians were a favorite, of course. And they knocked the Indians out 4-2. So Indians were done. And then they beat the New York Yankees. You've heard of the New York Yankees, right? An actual traditional standard, the standard of Major League Baseball, the New York Yankees. And they beat them 3-1. Let's look at the other thing I have here. I actually have previous season's end results. So this is last year. They were 10-21, had the first pick in the draft. Year before that, they were 8-17. They had the first pick in the draft. Can I keep going back here? How far can I keep doing this? Year before that, it's not in bold. Year before that, they were 19-22. And year before that, we'll do it once more if we can. Year before that, they were 15-21. So they've never had a winning season in the last few years. But they keep getting the first picks and top picks in the draft. And eventually, folks, eventually you keep giving a team the top pick in the draft. Let me give you another football example, okay? So if you keep giving a team a number 1 or top 5 pick, look at the Cincinnati Bengals, another team from Ohio. They took Joe Burrow, and then they got Jamar Chase, and then they went to a Super Bowl, right? You remember the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, right? That wasn't that long ago, right? They were horrible. They were just a terrible team. And Ohio players trying to do what the Bengals did, I guess. It goes a little bit deeper than that, though, folks. Let's take a look at this roster really closely under a microscope. You got Vida Blue, former MVP Cy Young and a world champ for Oakland. Rudy May for the Yankees later in his career goes to a World Series. Doc Ellis starts an All-Star game, wins a World Series for the Pirates. You eventually have Mike Norris, who has a brilliant 1980. You've got Tom Hall, The same Tom Hall from the Cincinnati bullpen of 72. Dave Cash with the World Series Pirates in 71, also playoff teams for the Phillies. How about Dan Driesen, Cincinnati Reds? You forget about Dan Driesen, he got a World Series ring. George Hendrick, World Series 82 Cardinals. Okay, Bill Robinson, playoff team Phillies and Pirates. How about Orlando Cepeda from the 60s? How about Elrod Hendrick? It's just a role player for the Baltimore Orioles. Went to plenty of playoff games. You know, this is a really under the radar. They're like a quasi National League. They're sort of like, you know, the apples to oranges. Cincinnati Reds meet the Pittsburgh Pirates stepchild or something. They're really good with, you know, a lot of holes in this roster, but at least the starters are really good. The offense is good. The starting pitching is fantastic. So it's not that surprising that they have got to where they are. So with that, where are we in this series? Well, let's take a look at Game 1. We open up in Ohio. If the Rangers were to win Game 1, they could elect to play Game 2 in Ohio as well and keep pushing their one home game later and later in the series. It could be potentially the ultimate game, and they'd have home field advantage for that. Game 1, it's Jim Umbarger versus Lynn McLaughlin. We got some sloppy baseball by two teams who don't have the greatest defense in the world. With 2 on and 2 outs in the bottom of the second inning, a ground ball to Len Randall is an error, and then Ivan De Jesus gets a single off the pitcher's card. It's 1-0. It's an unearned run. Fourth inning, you get a walk. Ike Brown throws the ball into center field as Lenny Randall steals a base, ends up at third, scores on a single, unearned run. It's 1-1. Sixth inning, same thing happens. Burrows walks. Lahoud doubles. You get the pass ball plus foul out. Gets another unearned run in. It's 2-1. Look, folks, this is not great baseball. I get it. But it's at least close baseball. It's a 2-1 game. Bottom of the sixth inning, ground ball to Mike Hargrove. He kicks it for an error. Ike Brown doubles after a strikeout. Bill Hands comes in to face the righties. It doesn't work out. Bill Robinson RBI single, George Hendrick RBI single, and while that's going on, we have only one earned run in this game that the Ohio leads 3-2. Lynn McLaughlin, another long-distance starting pitcher for this Ohio team. It's almost the bullpen phone's been disconnected. They just go with their 4 pitchers. Vida Blue, Lynn McLaughlin, Rudy May, Doc Ellis, rinse and repeat. And occasionally use Tom Hall and Larry DeMary. Sometimes when they get blown out or they blow out their opponent, they'll use Jesse Jefferson and Mike Nars. But otherwise, they just don't go to the pen. McLaughlin gives up a single in the 8th, 3 up, 3 down. A single in the 7th, 3 up, 3 down in the 8th. A single to Jim Sundberg in the 9th. That is it. Lynn McLaughlin, another complete game for an Ohio starter. 9 innings, 7 hits, 2 unearned runs, 4 walks, 6 Ks. Ohio wins 3-2. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ohio players are on the verge of getting the number 2 seed in the American League. And you want to talk about a lightning strike, or, you know, where the heck did this come from? There we are. It's called a team that's just dusting the opposition on a regular basis. We have them at a pedestrian number 5 seed. Well, that's going to change. They are now 24-19, playing .558 ball. Tied percentage points with the White Sox presently. But if they win, they have to win this game. If they win this game, they actually would become the number 2 seed, and Detroit would fall to a number 3 seed. And the other interesting situation here, the White Sox, they might actually like losing the 2 seed to Ohio. If Ohio gets the number 2 seed, the White Sox would have the number 3 seed, meaning that all the White Sox have to do is win in the wild card round, and then they go to Ohio. They go play this team. And it's a favorable matchup on paper, at least. I'll say this over and over again, that teams should be able to beat Ohio. At least the established teams should. Baltimore, Oakland, Detroit, they should all have better rosters than Ohio. So that sets up favorably for the White Sox if they fall from a 2 to a 3. And could the Ohio Players, a team that's been in last place the last 2 years, actually get a number 2 seed in the American League? And could 2 of the 8 expansion teams make the playoffs? That's 25%. 25% of the league are expansion teams. And lastly, as I'm laboring this point, but I want to hammer it home here. If you're wondering why so many expansion teams, it's because I want to play the cards that Strat-O-Matic prints. I want to use the Strat cards. Even if not all the cards are in my league, I want to look and analyze the players and get to play them. So I'm not going to have Dan Driesen sitting on the bench in Cincinnati and George Foster's and Ken Griffey's sitting on the bench and so forth and so on, and just packing rosters with players that I never get to use. So this is, the opportunity for, let's see, like the Bob Montgomerys to get regular playing time, and the, Merv Retmans, and the Alphys Marses, and all these other guys, Ken Bretts and Jim Lonborgs and Gray Grosses, like all these kind of guys who are actually pretty decent, get some extra eyeballs on these cards. Learn more about the game of the 70s. So we'll finally now get to Game 2 from Texas. Rudy May for the Ohio Players. 74 in 141 innings. He had a 3.19 ERA for your New York Yankees. Starter 8, relief 4. He ends up going to Baltimore and then returns to the Yankees. So he's there, I think, in the 81 World Series, maybe in the 77 and 78 ones also. It was a great year in 1980, where they won 103 games. The Rangers will start Steve Hargan. He had a nice year in 1970, I believe, with Cleveland, and then he has arm problems, and then he finally returns in 75. And if you've been following the Rangers this year on my channel, he's pitched a few times. So it's not the first time you've seen Steve Hargan. He's got at least one win on YouTube that I can remember. And he has this nasty habit of putting men on base and stranding them. If you're willing to play that game of Russian roulette, it's a kind of a scary game. But that's what the game Hargan has been playing this year. Ohio at Texas. Can the Rangers keep their season going? Leading off for Ohio is Larry Lintz. 59 short X. It's Toby Hara. He's a 3.32. He makes the play. Dave Cash, 46, is a base hit. Ace stealer, but Sundberg and his -2 arm are catching. He'll stay put for now. It's Dan Driesen. 2-4 flies to center, and with 2 outs, George Hendrick. 2-10 grounds the third. Bottom of the first, it's Dave Nelson. 3-10 left. Dave Rader, 52. Pitcher. Frank Howard, 3-6. Let's take a look at Frank Howard if you're wondering. That's funny. Last time the Rangers played, we said this could be Frank Howard's final game. And he hit 2 home runs. Well, it wasn't his final game. This could be his final game. And he just rolled 3-6 on his card of 1973. 12 homers and 227 at-bats, would be platooning with Norm Cash, which is a heck of a platoon. Some years, in the late 60s, I'm guessing, Norm Cash and Frank Howard might have hit 80 home runs combined. But now, at this point of their careers, they can only hit one side of the card. Did it for the Tigers. And the Ranger fans love their big guy. Solo shot, it's 1-zip. Jeff Burrows. 46 is a K. Top of 2, it's Carlos May. 5-12, second X. Second baseman is Dave Nelson. 3E12 makes the play. Bill Robinson. Bill Robinson rolls to the mound. And Orlando Cepeda, 53, rolls the first. Bottom of the second, it's Tom Grieve. 2-10 rolls the short. Toby Hara, 45, short X. This would be Larry Lentz, 40-44. Short, that's a base hit. Not going to say these are dynamite defensive teams, folks. They're not. Ace Stealer, -1 arm catcher, Hendricks. Randall's going to do a hit and run. How about that? Runner has to steal, and he's gone down. That didn't work. So Randall will swing away with no one on base. He gets double and a 5 off May. It's a double. Now you got Hargrove. 65, pops to second. We go to the third. Elrod Hendricks, 38. Elrod Hendricks walks. I'm always mystified how 215 hitting Elrod Hendricks always seems to come through and do something good every game he plays in. Might be hitting like 270, 280 with this card, or at least his on base percentage might be 350, or some ridiculously, or maybe it's just all the clutch hits he's had. He's had a walk-off game winner in the 9th. Anyway, Ike Brown, 6'11", first X. First baseman is Frank Howard. Yeah, you got to live with that. 40-25. Oh, he makes a ground ball save. You may also consider maybe Ohio is lucky. You know, short sample. You're only playing 40, 45 games. You can just get lucky, folks. Maybe Ohio's simply just lucky. Maybe they were incredibly unlucky the last couple years and really weren't as awful as the first overall pick in the draft. But whatever. Here we are today. Larry Lentz, pitcher X. Can you field Hargan? No, you're an E38. But he gets a ground ball C, so there you go. 2 horrendously bad fielders just made plays. Runner at third, 2 outs for Dave Cash. 65 flies to center. And once again, Hargan gets off the hook. Jim Sundberg, 1-8, single. Dave Nelson, 45, short X. This is Lentz, a 40-44 again. Single like that. All the defense is going one way. That portends well for their home team. Runners in the corners. They'll go up and hold Rader. Dave Rader, 6'10", catcher's X. Most likely a pass ball. He's a 4-2. They get the pass ball. And we had a few of those in game 1. We have another one today. Another unearned run. Runner at second, 1 out. Frank Howard. 1-7. Surrounded or short. And with 2 outs, it's Jeff Burrows. 39, a grounder to short. 2-0 Rangers. Top of the 4th. It's Dan Driesen. 3-6 is a K. George Hendrick, 110, short. Carlos May, 45, flies to left. Top of the 4th. Bottom of the 4th, excuse me. Tom Grieve. 54, second X. Cash 2E22. He kicks the ball. Another error. Toby Hara, 112, left. Whoever defense plays the best and whoever starting pitching plays the best will probably win this series. Which I, can't really determine at this point or figure out at this point. Mike Hargrove, 65, pops to second base. 2-0 Rangers. Into the 5th we go. Ohio, like I said, is no bullpen. They have Tom Hall, who is clearly struggling this year. He's 4-4 with no saves. I'll say that again. Ohio's closer has no saves. He's got 4 losses and 4 wins, and his ERA is around 11 or 12. He's pitched 12 innings, given up 14 runs. Demary has 4 saves. Texas lives and dies by the back of their bullpen. Steve Foucault and Paul Lindblad. That is the highlight of this pitching staff. So, Ohio from the front and Texas from the back is how they roll their staffs. Top of the 5th. It's going to be Bill Robinson, 6'9", center. Orlando Cepeda, 63, pitcher X. Hargan is an E38 again. Oh, he finally made an error. Elrod Hendricks, 410, lines a second. And with 2 outs, it's Ike Brown. 1-3, grounds to short. Mr. Hargan again. A YouTube sensation, dare we say. 2-0 game. Bottom of the 5th from Arlington. Let's pause a moment for station identification.
This is the Shrimp Trawler video channel.
Este es el canal de videos de camaroneros.
Fans are crazy here in Texas. They have been a Cinderella in the past. And obviously, this is a Cinderella thing, folks. And if you're wondering about Cinderella in general, you're not going to find that in the National League. None of those teams want to say they're Cinderella because they're all talented. But, yeah, these are not World Series teams from 1973 to 1976 or playoff teams, as said the definition of Cinderella. Bottom of the 5th. It'll be Jim Sundberg. 49, triple 1-4, base hit. Dave Nelson. This is how they scored the run in the 3rd inning. A leadoff single by Sundberg. Dave Nelson, 5-10. Short X. And again, oh, what a bad day to be Larry Lenz. Can you give up a 3rd hit? A 40-44? No, he gets ground ball C. He's starting to figure it out after the first 2. Runner moves up. Dave Rader. 1-5. Let's take a look at this Dave Rader card, folks. My goodness. You know, I once mentioned they didn't have a restriction on Rader on this card, and believe it or not, they do, as it turns out. And you know what else, folks? This guy, Dave Rader, might be the only guy, at least in the 1970s, 80s, to literally have a mention in the Strat-O-Matic roster sheet to limit his playing time because of the statistical prowess he displays. I am not joking. I'm not making this up. The 1980 Boston card, it says don't use them too much, and it says the same thing about the 74 Raider. And that's because of the split. He's a 291 hitter. And normally when you have a humongous split on a low percentage, you don't normally get a reward this much on the card. You might make the card look like a 333 hitter, for instance. This radar card is not that. This radar card is about a 450 hitter. It's one of the best hitting cards you're going to find in the 1970s, just as far as counting the hits on the card versus lefties. So that is, you know, and the Rangers and the, you know, teams like these need these outlier cards to compete. Obviously, it's not going to win a World Series, but you get a card like this or a couple cards like this, it can make them look better than they normally are. 1-5, you get your double to center field, and that will score the run. 3-0, Frank Howard. 2-6, the big guy. He loves elimination games. Homer, 1-6, double the rest. It's a 2-base hit for the big guy. 4-0 Rangers. Jeff Burrows, 2-4 short. And Tom Grieve, 112 left. Rangers are alive, if you're wondering. And they win this game, well, the other 2 games will be in Ohio. Again, it's the home field advantage for Ohio. And the tie-breaking game, well, Ohio still has a tiebreaker, so they'll be home there as well. So this is the lone game in Texas. Rangers taking advantage of the home cooking. Top of the 6th. Steve Hargan with a 1-hitter. And it's Larry Lentz. 37's a base hit. Dave Cash. 1-7 is a base hit through the hole. They were holding Lentz. Runners on the corners for Driesen. 33, he pops out. George Hendrick. 39 is a base hit to left field. Cash. Do you go coast to coast with 1 out against a plus? Yeah, you do when it's a 19. And he makes it. So, even though they were down 3, Cash goes coast to coast. You got runners on the corners, 1 out in a 4-1 game, and suddenly the tie run is Carlos May. And suddenly, just like that, the innings-starved Texas Rangers starting pitcher has hit the point of weakness in the 6th inning. Now, the Texas Rangers would have had Ferguson Jenkins on this team. He's still with the Cubs. And Jackie Brown on this team. He was sniped from their organization by the Cardinals. So that's the innings they don't have. You could leave Hargan in broken. I'm not going to let them lose this game, though. I'm going to let them pitch to at least another batter just to... They need outs. So he'll face Carlos May with runners on the corners and 1 out. They're going to play back and hope for double play. Here's the pitch to Carlos May. 2-2, he pops to short. And with 2 outs, it's Bill Robinson. 6-11, first X. Oh, it's the big guy, Frank Howard. 4-25 at first base. Oh, well, that's going to be a double. And ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. It's now 4-2. And maybe this is how Ohio wins so many games. The teams they play are just, Cleveland, the Yankees, now Texas. That could be it. With Hargan on the hook here, we are going to pull him after 5 2/3. He cannot lose. The 2 runners we could be charged to him would just be a tie. They need 1 more out in this inning. Gosh, it is so hard to manage this when you know you got to win 3 games. And more bad news is that they're short a guy in the bullpen because David Clyde's got to start tomorrow. So it's Hans Lindblad. It's going to be Paul Lindblad. They're calling this the Paul Lindblad game. He's a relief 3. He'll pitch 3 innings. So Paul Lindblad will come on in the 6th. Lindblad was an Oakland pitcher in 1976 with a 3.05 ERA and 115 innings. That 76 Oakland team didn't go to the playoffs, but they had a really good pitching staff. Paul Lindblad in the 6th inning to see if they can get the final out. It'll be Orlando Cepeda. And Lindblad's pretty good against right-handed batters. Here's the pitch to Orlando Cepeda. 66, center B, and the inning is over. Rangers hold the 4-2 lead. Rudy May will continue. It's Toby Harrah. 3:10 left. Len Randall, 68, is a walk. A Steeler. He's going to take off here. He's safe on a 2. And no T rating. He's at second with 1 out. Mike Hargrove. 37's a K, and now it's Jim Sundberg. 66, another K. It stays 4-2. Competitive baseball. Top of the 7th inning. Elrod Hendricks looking over at the dugout. Do you want me to swing versus a lefty? And the answer is sure. Why not? Whatever we do always seems to work this year. 2-8, he grounds the first. Ike Brown. 48, double 1 to 5, base hit. And now your tie run is Larry Lentz. You can take him out. Yeah, they're going to have Pepe Mengual pinch hit. This is a game of dare. Because they're like, you're not going to pull Lindblad. You need his length. You need him, you're not going to just pull him for a matchup here. He's going to probably pitch until the 9th inning and then switch to Foucault, possibly. But your tie run is Pepe Mengual, and here's the pitch. 39 is a fly ball to center field. And with 2 outs, it's Dave Cash. 67, second X. We have a 3-12 second baseman. He makes the play, finally, and the inning is over. All right. We go to the bottom of the 7th inning. Ohio will continue with Rudy May here in the bottom half. It is stretch time here in Texas. And the music just loops back to the beginning, which is really good because the hits keep coming here. This is Rio Grande Mud we're enjoying from 1972. I think it's the second ZZ Top album. Just got paid on this one. Kind of one of their underrated early records. Rio Grande Mud. And the Texas ZZ Top usually played at pretty much every Texas Ranger game on YouTube. If it's in Texas and you want to listen to ZZ Top, yeah, just go through my playlist, folks. I don't think I played anything else but ZZ Top when the Rangers are scheduled. All right, bottom of the 7th inning. Rudy May will continue. Top of the lineup, it's Dave Nelson. Let's see. I do have to make one more change, though. Mangual takes over. I need a shortstop, and we're going to put DeJesus in the game. We'll put him in Zepeda's spot for now. Yeah, okay. Carlos Meg can be a DH for now. Dave Nelson leads off bottom of the 7th. 4-2 Rangers lead. 3-11, he flies to right. Dave Rader again, 2-8, flies to center, and with 2 outs, Frank Howard, 55, second. Can you get him out of the field, folks? He's tired. He's pooped. He's 2 for 4 today, rounding the bases. Let's get him some rest. Howard will leave. Hargrove will take over at first base. My goodness, Texas. Let's get some outfielders who can catch the ball out there, too. Let's put Boots Day in the outfield. He'll play center field. Yep. And let's get ourselves... Let's put... we can leave Tom Grieve at DH, but let's put Joe LaHood in left field. How about that? There you go. That sounds good. That's all we need. All right. 4-2 game into the 8th inning. 6 outs to collect for Lindblad and Foucault. It'll be Dan Driesen. 43 first X, and immediately it pays off because they have Hargrove there now. 2-18 first baseman. He makes the play. George Hendrick. 1-6, flies to center, and with 2 outs, it's Carlos May. 2-8, strikes out. Bottom of the 8th inning. Hey, Ohio, why not just let one of your other pitchers pitch? Just a pitch. You know, I mean, I know Rudy May's pitching decently enough. His defense let him down here with a pass ball and so forth. But let's get Rudy out after 7. Let's bring somebody else in. Let's just go Mike Norris. How about that? Just for a story time here. Mike Norris. We got his 1976 cards for that Oakland A team I mentioned that had, well, Paul Lindblad on it, Mike Torres, Vita Blue, Stan Bonson. That was a good pitching staff. But anyway, Norris had a 4.78 ERA in 96 innings. Not very good at all. He was one of the extra player cards for that Oakland team. But here's your story time, folks. We do a fall league here, and the timeline is 8 years into the future, and that Ohio player team won the fall league world championship, led by the 1980 Mike Norris card. Vita Blue, his 80 card was on that team as well. So Vita Blue plays all the way through the 1980s with the Ohio players full time. So that's the story. If you want to check it out, look at the fall league in the channel for 1980 to 1983. So, but Mike Norris will come in the bottom of the 8th inning to pitch an inning here. It'll be Jeff Burrows. 5-12 walks. Tom Grieve. 1-7, base hit left field. Burrows holds. Now you got Toby Harris. You could drop a bunt down to move the slow-footed runners up, but you might as well just keep teeing off of Mike Norris. He'll swing away. 69, another walk, and here we go. This is what happens when Ohio decides to go to the bullpen. Not good things. Infield has to come up for A. Bunting, Len Randall. 47's a sac fly. It's 5-2. Hargrove, 4-11. Right X. Bill Robinson's a 2-11. Makes the catch. And with 2 outs, Jim Sundberg, 2-3. Let's take a look at Sundberg's card. Yeah, he was an important part of that 74 Ranger team. He was second in WAR on that team, I believe. As a -2 arm catcher, really stabilized that pitching staff for Billy Martin and company. -2 arm catcher, went to the All-Star game, even though he hit just 247. 2-3, triple 1-9. That is a double. You want to run Hara? Of course we do. 16 for Hara. It's going to be close. 16, 17, 18, -1 arm. He's safe. It's a 2-run double by Jim Sundberg, and we have a 7-2 game. Dave Nelson, 66. Double 1-5, and this is throwing in the towel. You go to your bullpen, they score 4 more runs. Joe LaHood, 43. left X. Gotta say, what a really uneventful baseball game this is. It's an RBI single. It is now 9-2. And I gotta put that in the right spot. Yada yada down here. And oh, how we yearned for Pirates Giants. And folks, if this has not been entertaining for you and you really want your money back, well, you can't get your money back because it's YouTube's free, I guess. But you need to tune into that Pirate Giants game I just broadcast. I wore myself out in that broadcast, and that was a instant classic. So if you tuned into this instead of that, you made the wrong call. Go check out Pirates Giants. Boots Day, 2-9. Get out, Boots. Nope, he's doubling. He gets a double. Second and third, we're batting around, I believe. Jeff Burrows again. Jeff, get out. Grounds a short. Great. 9-2, ninth inning. Bill Hands will come in. We want to keep Foucault as fresh as we can. He went 2 1/3 innings. Bill Hands will pitch the ninth in what turned out to be a laugher. It'll be Bill Robinson, 34, short. And you got to remember, the Rangers are playing at home. The crowd's probably really raucous here, knowing that it's probably going to be the last game of the year at home in Texas. The chances of winning 2 games in Ohio, as talented as they are, playing at home would be difficult in Ohio. DeJesus, 311, pops to third. And lastly, Elrod Hendricks, 1-3, he strikes out. And that's your ball game. I won't belabor this, folks. Let's see, 5, 6, 7, 8. Bill Hands pitched the ninth. So, Steve Hargan hangs on for the win, going 5 2/3 innings. Lindblad would have had to save if I left him in there, but I hooked him. And Rudy May takes the loss. It's a 9-2 final. The teams will split 2 games. The third and possibly the fourth game. The Rangers will have David Clyde, a starter 5, in Game 3, and Jim Bibby, a starter 8, in Game 4 if necessary. Ohio players will have Vida Blue in Game 3, a starter 8, and Doc Ellis. Those guys faced each other, by the way, in 1971 All-Star Game. Vida Blue, Doc Ellis in Games 3 and 4 if necessary for Ohio. Who do you think's going to win those folks? Anyway, anything could happen because it's Cinderella time. All right, we'll give you the answer after the break, so stay tuned. All right, folks, here's a box score of the game 2 you saw. The Rangers ultimately blowing out Ohio by a score of 9-2. Though it was competitive most of the way through, not the most interesting game. There were, again, catchers' E ratings and errors and that sort of stuff. Hargan in 5 2/3 gave up 5 hits and 2 runs to qualify for a win. It was really Paul Lindblad's 2 1/3 innings of relief slamming the door here, preventing an Ohio comeback. Rudy May was pulled in the 7th, and for no reason. He's a starter 8 anyway, and he was sailing along. His defense hurt him, but they pulled him and bad things happened. I guess you can do that when you're up 1-0 and the last 2 games potentially are in your own park. Series tied a game apiece. What happens in Game 3? Well, it's a battle of lefties on different spectrums. You got 19-year-old David Clyde, just graduated high school a few years ago, or a few weeks ago, depending, I guess, against Vida Blue. In this one, it is low scoring. And one thing we'll say is there are runners that are not being brought in. Frank Howard, again, is hot, gets a single in another elimination game. 2 hits in the first, they don't score. They get a hit in the second inning, and they don't score. Another hit in the 5th, they don't. Ohio, in the first inning, gets 2 singles and a ground ball double play to score a run, then 2 more singles that don't do anything. After 2 outs, David Clyde walks the batter and then commits back-to-back errors on balls hit back to him. I guess they don't teach defensive pitching in high school for pitchers. But he worms out of it. He gives up a double in the 4th, another troublesome error for Toby Harrah, who's error-prone at this point of his career. 2 more singles in the 5th, and believe it or not, David Clyde gets through 6 innings relatively unscathed, giving up 9 hits, a walk, and 3 errors. In the 7th inning, he's still in there and gives up a couple hits. Then they bring in Foucault. All Foucault does is give up a sac fly, and a 1-1 tie turns into a 2-1 game. So you're going to have to beat Vida Blue. Can you beat Vida Blue? Texas, you have the bats. You got to swing them and hit them enough. They can't beat Vida Blue. Blue gives up a single in the 8th. This is why you have an ace. We have seen this repeatedly in this league. I had a World Series once. Baltimore swept the Reds 4 straight. They used 4 pitchers. Jim Palmer, Mike Cuellar, Dave McNally, and Dick Hall. The other 4 Oriole pitchers didn't play in that World Series. They used a 4-man pitching staff. Ohio had a complete game win out of Lynn McLaughlin in Game 1. They have another complete game today out of Vida Blue. We saw Catfish Hunter last year for the Oakland A's at one point was 13-1. If your ace, if your number 1 guy is a dynamo, if he is lights out, you can make some damage. Depending on the rest of your team, you can either be a World Series contender or a playoff team. But you have to have an ace, a top shelf ace in one of the best years of his career. Not just name recognition ace who's old, like Bob Gibson, who's, you know, a Hall of Famer, but he's probably 40 years old for the Cardinals at this point, as an example. No, you need to have a top of the shelf, and Vida Blue 76 might be the second best card of his entire career. 71, of course, the magic year, didn't go to the World Series. Got a World Series ring the following year when he was injured for part of it, but all that to say, Ohio wins the game and the series by the 2-1, and they win the series 2-1. So with that, let's take a look at the complexity that's just emerged in the American League playoff field. Here we are. Ohio is now 25-20. The Rangers are eliminated with a record of 20-20. One more little statistic about the Rangers, which is a pretty good statistic here, is they are currently in possession of the Commissioner's Award for roster utilization, meaning they get a compensation pick in the 2026 draft. The 33rd overall pick. They basically turn in the card for their 8th round pick with a 33rd pick in the draft. So they move up from 8th round to the 2nd round for roster utilization. We have these computations done here for that. And they're sitting at 1,633 points. The only teams left would be Minnesota, Boston, or Philadelphia, or the Mets. And it doesn't look like any of those teams are close. Possibly the Twins. They got 1,088 points. But Texas has 1,633 points, and they look like they're going to get the compensation award, which is often a very nice pick. And they certainly could use a nice arm with that pick, perhaps. But that's a good story for the Rangers, even in elimination. Now, back to the Ohio players. So, with the Ohio players, 25-20, well, the good news for them is they have clinched their division. Albeit with a rather strange... The Texas Rangers are kind of confused, befuddled, bewildered. They're the team that gets screwed the most in all of this. White Sox, Twins, there are scenarios here that are just hard to figure out. Let's do the easy stuff. The Oakland A's, believe it or not, clinch, but just 2 go over 500. So they are locked into the 4 seed. And Baltimore has a bye at a 1 seed. Now, in between here, we have a mess. And it's all about tiebreakers. Tigers have a tiebreaker versus Ohio players. Tigers have winning percentage over Ohio players. Ohio players are a half game better. Therefore, we've determined that they would win the division over the Tigers. And the Tigers aren't happy about that. We have Ohio and the White Sox at 5 games over 500. And we have all sorts of tiebreakers in place here that are confusing to this point. The Twins still have to play Boston. The Red Sox, if they win that series, they still are just a regular old wild card team, 4 games over 500, which is fine. They'd be tied with the Tigers to determine who's 5th and 6th. But we'll leave Boston alone for the moment. It's the Twins who present a problem here because of tie-breaking concerns. The Twins, if they win 2 straight over Boston, now it has to be 2 straight, not 2-1, would be tied with the White Sox. However, the White Sox have a tiebreaker over the Twins. However, the Twins have a tiebreaker over the Ohio players. So trying to break this all out, it would seem that the White Sox should remain at the 2, and Ohio remains at the 3, and the Twins will simply have to sit at a 6, possibly, or they could actually move up to the 5, and the Tigers could be the 6. But I really don't have an effective way of breaking the logjam here, other than taking the value of head-to-head, strength of schedule, and so forth and so on to break these ties. It's pointless to play an extra game, because playing an extra game will only screw up the team's pitching staffs, because they have got to waste a starter for that particular game. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter that much when you look at it. The number 2 seed would be nice. But, however, the White Sox, it wouldn't really matter if they play in the wild card round and then play those guys. So let's take another look at the strength of schedule here. We're kind of look at this. Let's take a look at Ohio's season. Your Ohio players, they beat Seattle 3-1. Okay, Seattle's an awful team, so they shouldn't count for much. They lost to the Expos 4-3. Expos are a reasonably good team. They beat the Cardinals 2-1. They lost to the Twins 3-2. They lost to the Tigers 4-2. They beat the Cleveland Indians twice. They beat the Yankees and they beat the Rangers. White Sox lost to Baltimore. Well, we know Baltimore's number 1. They lost to the Tigers 3-1. However, the Tigers, again, don't... Let's look at the winning percentage of Tigers White Sox here. Like I say, there's all sorts of ways to break ties in this, and sometimes you can just use a judgment call. I mean, there's, 561 baseball for this team. Nobody else is playing 561 baseball. And 23 wins and 18 losses. Of course, Ohio is 25-20. But, yeah, it's still confusing. It's still confusing. See, White Sox did lose to the Tigers. They beat the Brewers. They lost to the Twins, and they beat the Twins. They beat the Royals. They beat Oakland. So against division leaders, they beat Oakland, but they lost to the Tigers and Orioles. Let's look at the Twins. Twins beat the Yankees, but the Yankees lost to Ohio. The Twins beat Kansas City, who wasn't very good. Lost to Portland, who was not very good. They did beat these Ohio players, so they had the tiebreaker versus them. They beat the White Sox the first time. They beat the Brewers. They lost to the White Sox the second time, and they barely beat... Who did they barely beat? I want to say the California Angels, right? Twins, did they not beat the Angels? Yes, they beat them 2-1. So in the second phase of the tournament, the Twins... They were 2-5 against the White Sox, 2-1 against those guys, so they're 4-6. White Sox are 5-2, and then they beat Oakland 3-2. They're 8-3. Yeah, it's a mess, folks. But it looks like I'll have the White Sox hold on here, Ohio there, Tigers there, and Twins or Red Sox will be 6th. I know it's a total mess, but there we go. That's what happens. And you know what? Doesn't it make sense that the American League's a total mess? And does it really matter who has home field and who's a 5 or 6 seed? You can pull these teams out of a hat. White Sox are a good baseball team. Oakland should be a good baseball team, but for some reason they're struggling this year. And if you're wondering, well, does that mean a lot? Well, it could. You know, the Pittsburgh Pirates didn't make the playoffs a year ago, coming off a World Series championship. And the A's are just 2 over 500. Probably shouldn't have made the playoffs, coming off of a world championship. So let's look at the stats as well. For the 2 teams that played today, Rangers finished the season 20-20. Like I said, they have the Commissioner Award for roster utilization. Their all-star was closer Steve Foucault for lack of anybody else who was really doing a whole lot. He actually finishes with 9 saves, only gave up 4 runs in 24 innings. Certainly deserving of that nod. The starting pitchers were 5-4, 5-4, 2-4, and they had a 4.07 ERA. They hit 271, 8 home runs by Ken McMullen, who batted 9th a lot of the year. Only two guys with 20-some RBIs. Burrows, 7 homers, 24 RBIs. Tom Grieve, 6 and 23. Leading hitter for the Rangers was Len Randall was 40 for 157, which is 255, so not him. Nothing, yeah, just they're a 500 team. Let's move on. Now, Ohio should have better stats. We talked about the pedigree and the previous clubs that these Ohio players have played for. They're 25 and 20. This team has 13 complete games of the 45 they've played. By 7 complete games by Vida Blue, 4 by Lynn McLaughlin, and May and Ellis have a game. Tom Hall, again, he's 4-4 with no saves, and his ERA is .994. Vida Blue is 7-4. Lynn McLaughlin 6-6. Rudy May 3-4. Doc Ellis 4-2. It's kind of head scratching actually how this team, Blues 3 over, 2 over, 4 over, 5 over, how they are 25 and 20, even with, you know, the reputation these players have. George Hendrick has 8 homers and 32 RBIs. The offense is really good in this team. Dave Cash has 61 hits in 45 games. Bill Robinson's 55. Lentz went to the All-Star game with a bunch of stolen bases. Larry Lentz has 18, 20 walks leading off. Dave Cash is hitting .323. So there's that, folks. Yeah, you know, I guess I can I can look at what happens in the Minnesota-Boston series and make a further determination of who gets a bye in the American League, but it's really confounding figuring out how to break this tie at this point. And by the time I make that decision, unfortunately, the video will all be done, so I can't really solicit advice in the comments section because the game and the seeding will already be played by the time this video gets uploaded to YouTube. So unfortunately, I'm just going to have to make a decision without getting votes, I guess, from viewers on this. But in any event, after all this, let's break up the Ohio players. They took care of Texas 2-1. Thanks for checking this out. We'll see you next time.